Okay, I think I unmuted us and hopefully we'll be good. Okay, well, thank you all for coming and being on time today as you normally are. I appreciate you all so much. Today we have the pleasure of having Miss Amber Gillian here with us. I'm gonna let her go ahead and introduce herself and just get us started because I know you and we did a lot of chatting before, and so I know you had like a focused talk and the things that you wanted to say with the students.
Yeah.
So, but I can jump in any time. And the students, I know they have been looking forward to speaking with you, so they may have some of their own questions
Would love
as well.
questions. That
Yes,
was amazing.
yes.
Yeah, honestly, I'm excited just to share my experience, to learn more about you all, to see, if there's any way that I could be supportive. So Amber Gillian, that's my name. I am a licensed therapist in the state of Maryland, DC. My focus is reproductive wellness. So across the board from, first menstruation kind of talks and education through postmenopause. I'm also certified in perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. So that's been a focus of mine, just supporting moms, making sure they get the care that they need, advocating for them, connecting them with services, helping them, build their care team. That's a big area of focus. Like, I'm going through these big changes, who can support me? And then for a lot of folks, especially women of color, like who can safely support me and consider cultural differences. I'm the mother of three. I have one college student, and I have an 11-year-old and a 9-year-old. So I've been doing this for a while.
Wow.
I also do work at Hopkins, and I wear a couple of different hats. So I'm sorry if it seems like I'm all over the place, but I'm really passionate about this work, and I'm excited because I also work in research. In a completely different field, working in psychedelics, which is a lot of fun. I get to support folks that in clinical trials. So they're going through we have a bunch of different studies. So we have one on like PTSD. We did do a postpartum depression study. We also have like an opioid use disorder study that I work on, chronic low back pain with depression study, and that's over at Bayview. So that's me.
Yeah, yeah. You guys want to get started?
My name's Isha. Thank you for coming to our class and speaking with us. One of the questions I had was like, I really am inspired by how you mentioned that you wear like many hats, and like that's something that I really want to do when I'm older. Is like, I have like a lot of things that I want to be involved in. So, but like sometimes when I'm thinking about my future, I'm like, oh, like what's the path to get there if I want to do so much. So like when you were like, this is a very big question, but like, what was your journey, or like, what have you done so that now you can like, be the licensed therapist, but also you're involved in research and you do all this stuff. Like, I just want to, do multiple things in that sense. Like, how did you get there? Like, what do you do to like be able to hold those paths?
I love that question, and I really appreciate you asking. The path has been pretty much chaos, like trying all of the things, doing all of the things. You feel a lot of pressure when you're young to like have it all figured out. And then you're like, oh my God, I'm turning 20. Like, I remember that feeling. Like, I'm turning 20. What am I going to do with my life? I have to figure out these things. But then life happens. So share a little bit, like my oldest daughter, I had her when I was 20. So that wasn't necessarily part of my plan. And then that shifted my entire trajectory. So after that, I went from business management, and I was working in a bank. I've done investments. And then I was home with her for a while her first year. And then I started my path it's always been in supporting women. So I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like, but I've always wanted to support women. I've always felt passionate about supporting, especially women of color. And being a single mom, I started with finances. So trying to figure out how to help folks, learn how to manage their money. That brought me to working with a government contractor in Washington, D.C. And our main project there was child welfare. So then I started learning about the foster care system. And that was the point where I was like, oh, folks, like I truly just didn't know. You know, these youth were facing these hardships and they were aging out of foster care with no family, no support. As a young mom, I knew what that felt like to, not necessarily have the family structure or the support that I wanted. So then that became my focus. I was like, hey, I'm gonna go back to school for my master's. I want to do counseling. I'm gonna help the youth. And then I started working with youth. And then I realized, oh, it's not the youth, it's the parents. The parents actually need the support and the guidance. So after I finished my master's, I started in a couple of different areas. Then I was like, okay, yes, I do want to be a therapist. I had an idea of what it looked like, but you don't really know till you get in the field what that's going to look like or what that's going to be. So then I did like a substance use clinic for a little while. I did community mental health for a while, and I just felt it out. And along the way, I was like, okay, this feels good, or maybe it didn't feel good. Like some of the jobs I worked at, I was like, no, this ain't it. I wasn't getting the support I needed. And then that guided the next step. So I never had a clear, this is my destination. It was like one foot in front of the other. Okay, this is the next step. Okay, this is the next step. And then I found out, when I was working in community mental health, I was always telling the folks, like, can you send me the moms, like the single moms, the moms that are struggling at that point. I didn't know what we call now like perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. I didn't know that was a thing. And as I learned about it, I was like, oh crap, that's what I experienced, but I had no language for it. I had no name for it. So as soon as I found out that was a thing, then I was like, I'm gonna focus on this. So I did the certification and the training to become certified to specifically focus on perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. But what I learned in community mental health was that I love my job as a therapist, and it also requires so much. So that wasn't going to be something I wanted to do full time, 40 hours, because it requires like so much of us. And I wanted to be able to pursue other passions or explore things and continue to grow. So then like working at a hospital for a while. So I worked at Hopkins, Bayview, like the hospital part before I went to university. And again, I learned a little bit more, continued to learn about myself, gave myself space to grow and explore and not say like, oh, because this is what you studied in school, this is what you have to do. It's, the reaching out, finding mentors, doing certifications, talking to people, each way, just like redirecting, allowing yourself to take the pressure off to just have it all figured out because you're not. It's not until you really start doing it. And if you want to be in public health or medicine, like these are amazing fields and they also require a lot of us. So it's like, how much balance do I want to create? How do I create that balance for myself? And a lot of my passions came from either myself or my friends going through things. So like I said, with the postpartum stuff, I didn't realize till after that it was postpartum anxiety. Like, oh, that's what that was called. So then I learned about postpartum anxiety. And then as my friends are getting older, we're approaching our 40s, our hormones are changing again. And then I'm like, oh, okay, what's this going on? So then I started learning more about like menopause, perimenopause, hormone changes, how to partner with doctors, how to have these conversations because they're not necessarily having the conversation. But as a therapist, I'm seeing folks, maybe weekly, bi-weekly. I'm learning the insides, outsides of their lives. I'm seeing, some of the holes where they might not be getting the support they need, or, they don't know how to have the conversations with their providers. They don't have the language. They don't know how to get people to listen to them. Like, oh, I'm having this pain or I'm having this symptom. How do we put language to it so that medical professionals will listen, so that the housing communities will listen, so that, families will listen, relationships, people that you're in partnership with will listen. So yeah, that's kind of been, and it's not like a pretty answer, but I think that's probably the best answer that folks need to have is you're not going to have it all figured out. You're going to get in there, you're going to meet people, you're going to connect with folks, like networking and having a community is going to be the most vital part of your career and the trajectory that you go.
I have a question to go over that. Thank you so much for telling your story. My name is Cynthia. I'm pretty interested in psychiatry. So reading about like your work and hearing about what you're doing is like really inspiring. You kind of talked about it like just now, but I was wondering like as you continue to go into this field and as you have gone into this field, how or what are ways that you like maintain your own mindfulness and joy while like encouraging that for like mothers and like mothers who are minority as well.
So that is hard. So as a mother of three, I've learned the hard way that it's very easy to put everyone else first. To have a demanding career, to have a partner that has needs, to have children that have needs. And it's honestly been kind of, maybe I hit rock bottom or I get to a dark place. And then I'm like, okay, everybody else, I can't take on any more clients. I can't, solve anyone else's problems until I start a new practice. So I've kind of done all of the things just to see what I like. Because again, you don't know until you try it. So I've done like silent retreats. I've done mindfulness trainings, which I found to be helpful both for my clients and for myself. And a lot of times it's like, oh, I'm going to do these things to learn about it for my clients. And it's really like us as practitioners that need it, learning how to set boundaries, learning how to say no, learning how to sit, because the field will always need us. People will always need psychiatrists. They will always need doctors. The public health, like they'll always have needs, but you have to make sure that you advocate for yourself and put those boundaries in place because people will run all over you. Women of color especially, like that's kind of the expectation. They're going to solve all the problems. They're going to do all of the things. Women are not here to solve everyone else's problems. What I can say, and it might not really be related, but as we talk about motherhood and grief and the journey, who you choose on your team will make or break your personal life, your career. There was a friend of mine shared a study with me, and I have to find it, but it essentially said like the most influential factor of our career success as women is having a supportive partner. So not having a supportive partner can literally mean, postpartum depression, poor pregnancy outcomes, miscarriages, stress, burnout in the workplace. And that doesn't have to always be the romantic partner. It can come from our friends, it can come from our family, but making sure that you have a community that's like, hey, you've been working a lot, or we noticed this change. Take some time off. Let me come help. Let me do this. Let me step in. Because trying to do it all alone is going to be our demise.
And I think also, just to kind of amplify what you're saying, not when you hear someone say, I'm seeing this, let me. I think one of the hardest things to do is to say, thank you for seeing me and accept the help.
That is a whole word in itself. As the oldest daughter, when I tell you that asking for help or accepting help is the hardest thing. And that is something only I had to deal with. Other people were like, we're trying to help you. We're like, we're here. But I'm like, no, I have to do it. I have to, be there with my kids and, I'm nursing, I have a toddler at home, I'm in grad school, I'm writing papers, got a baby strapped to me, doing all the things. I needed to learn how to ask for help. So I really appreciate you saying that because you have to accept the help. We cannot let our egos guide us and be like, oh, I have to do all the things because we are going to burn out. We have to implement some kind of soft life. And I don't know what that looks like because it's going to look different for everybody. But if you have a friend who is like, let me help you, thank you. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for offering help. thank you for supporting me. And that doesn't have to be a lot. Like sometimes it's just having someone sit next to you while you get something done. So you don't feel as alone, or, have someone take your kids and go feed them dinner so you can get your last thing done. But yeah, learning how to ask for help and accept help is an individual challenge. And that I can say is one of the things with clients that we work on. Finding out you're pregnant is kind of like, okay, well, what's our game plan now? What is that going to look like? And being very mindful of language. So it's not like, oh, your partner's helping you with the household. It's like, no, whose household responsibilities are what? Whose parental responsibilities are what? Like, you're not helping me with this baby. We are in this together. And what are you going to be responsible for? If I'm up nursing, you're changing diapers. If, I'm making bottles, you're washing the bottles. What is your responsibility? And then letting them do that. So even if the towels aren't folded right, let them leave towels alone and go to sleep. Go take a nap.
I got a friend of mine now. She said that her husband wanted a dog and she didn't want a dog. And she sees things that needs to be done with the dog. And she's having to learn, and we're the same age, that is her husband's dog. And he wanted that dog. And that is his responsibility. And so I'm going to allow him to take care of his dog in the way that he sees fit and not feel like I have to do it. Because really, we're adding to our list.
Yeah.
Nobody asked you to add something else to your list of things to do.
And not only do they not ask you, but they start to take it for granted.
Yeah.
So
that part.
You do it, we're like, oh, they're gonna think it's so nice that we're feeding the dog or walking the dog when they're tired. And they're like, oh, no, now she's just gonna take over and she's gonna be feeding the dog. Like they never look back and like, oh, that's so nice of her to do that for us, because women are socialized to do and to take care of and to manage. The minute you start doing the most, people are gonna let you. So do less.
Look.
I promise you, I've told clients, like, if you walk away with nothing aside from do less, my job is done.
Yes.
That's it. And making that okay.
And making it okay. And half of the battle, I think, is getting okay with that with yourself.
Yeah, because it's just us.
Yeah, just go on your little walk and get okay with that. Go to sleep and be okay.
Go to sleep. I know y'all got studies, and I'm not telling you not to do your studies. Definitely do your studies, but be mindful of what you need and do that. So, we can look at our scrolling time and say like, oh, we don't have time, but then it's like, oh, we spend 5 hours on TikTok. Like, okay, we do have some time.
Yeah.
Spend 4 hours on TikTok and 1 hour napping.
I love that.
Thank you, Cindy. What else you got for me?
You don't have to raise your hand, remember, jump on in.
So, like, I was kind of wondering, like, you like mentioned how you've taken like so many different routes to kind of end up where you are. Like you're like always like changing and stuff. Like how do you like have like confidence when you have like when you're exploring something new or different, or like because like how do you have confidence and like also like not feel like imposter syndrome, but at the same time, because you said like not like to like you're saying do less, like sometimes I feel like here, even in class or something, like people might take advantage of you when you try to do a lot. Like they'll just assume like, oh, she'll just do it all.
Yeah.
So like how do you manage like having confidence but also not like take advantage of you?
You're not gonna have confidence all the time. You're gonna have imposter syndrome, and that's okay. And there's gonna be, it's a skill that you have to learn in terms of how to communicate, how to trust your intuition. But we have intuitions, like we know what we want to say no to, but then we say yes anyways. So giving yourself the license to say like, no. And I promise you, it's something that takes practice. It's not like that confidence, that knowing and trusting yourself is not something that you're born with, because we're taught to not trust our intuition. Like, if anything, folks are telling us like, oh no, you're unhappy? No, that's okay. Like, just keep going, just keep doing.
Mm.
So allow yourself to like do it anyways. So you're not feeling confident, but your intuition is telling you, and that could be anywhere. That could be with a friendship, that could be with a partner, that could be in a career, that could be an education program, that could be a class. Sit with it, and especially if you have like a licensed person, so they can kind of take the emotions out of it and just sit with it and say like, okay, these are your values. This is what you said you wanted to do. Is this kind of aligned with your values and who you are as a person, or are you just doing this because other people told you, or because your ego wants to have, this title? Title might be beautiful and great, but if you're not actually happy, it's meaningless. So, yeah, I would love to say you're going to be confident with every decision. You're not. There's going to be a lot of times where you feel scared, but, for those who are aligned with faith, it might take, tapping into faith or your network or your licensed professional where you're like, hey, I'm really sad. What's going on? And then it's like, okay, well, is that about your choices? Are those choices aligned with your value, or is there something else going on? Because sometimes there's just something else going on. And you're like, I'm not really happy. I'm crying all the time. I'm upset. I don't feel like I made the right decision. You're not feeling confident. You feel like an imposter. And it's like, oh, maybe it's the people around you. Maybe they suck. Maybe you need a better network of people that are actually like seeing you and not just using you for what you can do for them. So I'd love to plug therapy. Therapy work. If you find someone who you feel is a good fit, that you can talk to, that you can be honest with, that you can be honest with yourself with, that can kind of help you weed through some of the doubt, some of the guilt, some of the shame. And at the same time, that'll be present and you still have to move forward anyways.
I want to just say that oftentimes we talk about the resources that you all have access to, and you're in a time of your life where you're not quite 26 and kicked off of your parents' insurance. For those of you that are in that type of situation, and some of you may have access through insurance or therapists through, Johns Hopkins University. And I encourage you to use those types of resources that you have readily available to you right now. If there's anything that, you feel like you do want to talk to somebody about, because it is something that is available to you. And it's a resource, and it's right there. And hopefully you will always have that resource, but you definitely have it now.
Yeah, and if you start working with someone now, before things get really deep, or you're really deep in this career, and you really sit with them and you explore, maybe some childhood stuff, maybe some relationship stuff, but like most importantly, your values and what's important to you, and get really clear on who you want to be. The path might not be straight, but I firmly believe like our values don't necessarily change that much. You might refine it and might be like, oh, this has become more clear. But if you guys can check in and really sit with someone and say, this is what I want to do, what I want to look into right now, even if it changes, you're making that decision because you feel aligned to it, not because outside sources are telling you to. That could cut some of your time down. It could help you not make some decisions that, might not be right for you.
I have a question, Ms. Amber. Thank you for all that you said. It's been very insightful. You kind of already delved into this, but you mentioned you work with the youth, like kids in foster care, and you found that it's not just the kids that need support, but the parents too. And I was wondering, how do you help bring that sense of joy and peace into families that have experienced trauma, such as through foster care or through abuse, substance abuse? Because I've recently been interested kind of in what trauma really means to families and how to help them through that, especially through like a healthcare sense or through what you do for women.
So I have never done family therapy because it's a beautiful thing for people who can do it, but each individual person is their own kind of unit. So parents are each their own unit, children are their own unit, but then the family together is a whole separate unit. And like figuring out how the family dynamics work and connect, like, so for youth that I've worked with, connecting with therapists that maybe their family has been working with. But honestly, it's tough. Like, it's tough getting people on the same page. And a lot of the folks that I was encountering when I was working with foster youth, their parents had, maybe were unhoused, maybe had substance use issues, maybe just didn't trust talking to a therapist, because a lot of us are told, like, you don't say things outside of the house that happen in the house. So I might only be working with kids and never meet their parents. I would love for, and for anyone that's planning on going into like social work, I think it gives you a bit more like opportunity to go into the household, to kind of see the dynamics between the family. But it's so hard because everyone's dealing with their own stuff. The parents are dealing with their own trauma. They're hurting. Children are hurting. So I don't have a nice answer. I'm sorry.
That was helpful. I was just wondering that. I know with my own personal experience, I think some things, like as you get older, like you don't realize it had an impact on you until you start encountering more situations and different people.
Yeah,
Then you really,
it's normal.
yeah. So I feel like just as a kid, it's good for them to have people, a community around them to help them work through those things when they're young.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering.
Yeah, no, and it's an honest, like, it's an amazing question, and it also highlights the shortcomings of our systems. So when we talk about, each individual healthcare system or therapist, like, a lot of them are not communicating with each other, and they should be. Doctors, therapists should be communicating, teachers, because we each see different things, and a lot of things get missed with kids. What I can tell you, and what I kind of, like, in my heart kept me going working with children, is they've done studies, and if children have at least one stable adult in their life, it helps them form a secure attachment. So it doesn't have to be a parent, it doesn't have to be, a grandparent, but as long as they have one person that they feel like has their best interests at heart, that gives them the space to share, talk. They might not work through all the issues, but at least in their mind, they're like, this person helped me and this is a possibility. Like, all adults are not gonna treat me this way. I can trust someone, and that impacts their relationships, because like attachment impacts our future relationships, our adult relationships. So how our parents treated us, how, cousins, aunts, uncles, we just need one. Like, the kids just need one person that's gonna be a safe space, and that helps them learn, like, I'm gonna be okay, and then gives them time to work on the things on their own.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bristol. Thank you so much for coming here and sharing your story and your journey with us today. Our earlier conversation kind of reminded me of a story like I heard from like my mom one day, and it was like when she was pregnant with me, I think it was like maybe like 6 months. She was 6 months pregnant, and her sister told my father, like, now her belly's getting bigger, like help her around the house, like, I don't know, like clean up, wash the dishes, do the bed and stuff. And I think like my mom came home to the dishes being washed, and she was shocked. She was like, why would you do that? And then he was like, well, your sister told me. And then she called her sister and was mad at her, as like, don't tell him to do this, So like, I feel like for me, that story was like, what? Like, I would never tell like, let him do that, And so like, I think with the younger generation, it's like easier to, not that it's easy to prioritize yourself, but like, it's easier to kind of like take courses like this that tell us, like before we become mothers, or having those resources available to us before you're in it and knowing how to handle it is helpful. So like, for mothers that I guess never had that, like those chances or opportunities of like, I mean, it could be generational differences, but how do you approach the conversation of unlearning those habits?
Yeah, that's important. And like as I'm listening to you, absolutely, it's generational stuff, it's cultural stuff, it's our own stuff. I recently heard someone speaking and they were like, you know, these older generation of women, maybe our grandmothers, maybe, you know, for some of us that are older, like our mothers, they always stay busy. And we're like, how do they stay busy? How do they have all these children, work a job, cook all these meals? And somebody was like, they did that because they were so miserable, they had to stay busy.
Mm.
Because when you sit down, then it hits you. Like, I am not happy here. This is not the relationship I want to be in. This is not, you know, the career that I saw for myself. That brings me back to wanting to talk about grief. So we'll get into that. But yeah, unlearning it, saying like it's okay to sit down it's a revolutionary idea. Like being able to rest as a woman of color in this society is like, what? Wait, you mean I could sit down? What? But if we think about it, women weren't allowed to get mortgages on their own before like 1975. So that's within like recent history. They had to rely on men. They had to do the things necessary so that they would have housing, so that their kids would be safe, their kids would have housing. And it's only these new generations that are like, oh, wait a minute, I can buy a house by myself. I'll be okay. I can work. I'm more educated than a lot of, you know, men or just other demographics. I don't need them, so I don't have to do it all myself. I can go to school, I can study to be a physician, I can have an amazing career and still have children and maybe have children, maybe wait a little bit longer. Because as women, you know, career goals, education, they may postpone motherhood. Recently, they did a study and women in their 40s for the first time ever have outpaced teenage pregnancies. So women are saying like, it's okay, that biological clock is not real. They've also done studies that found like the men's sperm actually deteriorates faster than women's eggs. So we'll be okay. We can wait a little bit. We can have our career. We can outsource. We can get some help and get cleaning people because we can afford it now. The things we like to do, if you like to clean, by all means, clean. But like, what are the things you don't want to do? Outsource them so you can sit down and rest. Having these conversations with people in different generations, each one is a different conversation. Because I can share that with all of you beautiful minds and you're like, yeah, I get it. But then I can talk to someone's grandmother and they're like, no, you're absolutely insane. Why would I do that? So it's small pieces, like they're not going to change overnight, but maybe they get to go to get a pedicure. And you're like, okay, grandma, I'm gonna take you to get a pedicure. And they're like, oh, this is nice. This is nice. I like this. And then they start to understand, like, I don't have to do so much. I can do less. Do less. All of us do less. And things will still get taken care of. Because again, when we do more, other people aren't going to step in and be like, oh, let me do more because she's doing more. They're going to be like, oh, I'll do less. She's cooking all the meals. She's coming home. She's cleaning. I'll do less. It's not until somebody else says like, hey, wash the dishes. And they're like, oh, I can wash. Yeah, you can wash the dishes. And then when she comes home, she's in a better mood because there's not a whole sink full of dishes. So yeah, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of like intergenerational conversations. So the young folks talking to their moms, talking to their aunts, talking to their grandmothers and being like, oh, this is something fun. This is cool. You can send a text message. Teach your grandma how to text message. So she doesn't have to sit on the phone all day. She might love it. And no, some of it's not going to change overnight. So as a therapist, you know, working with folks to kind of figure out their boundaries, what they do want to do, what they don't want to do, my boundaries are not the same. So if someone truly, and I have had people that have found like dishwashing to be a mindful experience, they enjoy doing it. So it's like, cool, now have a conversation with your partner. Thank you so much for washing the dishes. I actually really enjoy washing the dishes, but what I'd love for you to do is go do laundry. Give him some other responsibility. But getting real clear on like what's important to us, our values, what we enjoy doing, not doing because we feel like we have to, doing because we want to. Building community, letting other people support us. Cause this whole like isolating thing that we're doing now,
Yeah.
this is not it. This is not how we were supposed to be raising families. Like there was a time, and there's many other places where there's intergenerational households. So there's grandmas, aunties, cousins, you always have someone to play with, someone's cooking, you don't have to cook every meal. This whole like, you have to work full time and have all these children and do all the chores and run the errands, like that's new. Stop that, like undo that, y'all. Get them to fix that.
And it's here.
It is.
It's a very American thing, you know, when we were in Gambia this summer, I mean, there was intergenerational household and the laundry was being done,
Yep.
the cooking was being done, and the food was being cooked, maybe by somebody who didn't even live in the
Yeah.
house. They were bringing the food over, you know, they trusted them to cook and it was good. You know, so many things were happening.
It's an
And the little child
ecosystem.
was like, that little baby infant was bouncing from, you know, who is your mama, girl? You know, you gonna find your way back by bedtime.
We're so lucky. They're loved and they're supported and they're like, hey, if somebody's not gonna take care of me, that other person,
Yeah.
they'll hug me.
Somebody is there. Yeah,
Somebody's
so,
there.
yeah, and the mama, you know, she was doing her business and all that type of stuff, able to go out without a baby on her back for a few hours. Yeah, it's something to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it starts with us
Mhm.
saying it's okay, normalizing it, having conversations like this, having conversations. So part of like my love and my passion is trying to build community and having these conversations. Because otherwise we think it's just us. We're like, oh, why am I failing? Why can't I manage my studies and my part-time job and socializing and all of everybody else is doing it. They're doing so well. No, everybody else is struggling too.
Mhm.
And then when you say like, oh yeah, no, I'm struggling, I don't actually enjoy this, then other people, you give them license to say like, oh yeah, I'm not actually happy either. So yeah, keep talking, keep having conversations. Even if the older folks don't listen, keep saying it, keep doing it, keep showing up. Don't be stubborn.
I have a question. My name is Nia. Thank you for speaking. This is probably a weird question, but what are like some good steps to find a therapist? Because I don't know, like I've hit the wall multiple times,
Yeah.
even with Hawkins too. Like a quick Google search and going on like the therapy.com. It's hard to find like an actual good therapist, especially like as a woman and a Black woman too. So.
Mhm. So that is, thank you for asking that, because that is not a weird question at all. It's like the number one question,
Mhm.
because there's multiple things we have to figure out, like there's the systems in place, so
Mhm.
insurance. What is covered? Who's affordable? Like most of us need to use insurance, as otherwise you can't afford therapy.
Mhm.
So then you start with your insurance company and then you get a list of folks. And then it's like sifting through that, maybe trying to connect with a Black woman or a woman of color or someone that's faith matches yours. And then they're not available. They're booked
Mhm.
because there's just not enough therapists. It's understanding it's probably going to be a process. Giving yourself time to say like, hey, you know, most therapists will do a consultation. So get on the phone with them, talk to them for a few minutes, see what they're about, see like the energy. And if you don't feel comfortable with them, or you feel like, oh yeah, they're not actually listening to me, you know, maybe they're on the phone, but they're busy doing something else, move on to the next one. You might unfortunately have to go through, you know, 10, 15 people before you find the right person. You might also start working with someone. They might seem like a good person, and then, you know, after some time, you're like, we're not getting any further. I feel like I'm just talking about the same thing. Therapists have like their own code of ethics that we should be abiding by, but not everybody abides by that. So do I feel safe with them? Do I feel like I can honestly talk to them? Do I feel like they're listening to me? Are they asking me the same questions over and over again? You could fire them, try somebody else. So again, I'm sorry, there's no easy
And
answer.
also like living in different states, because I know you can't talk
Yeah.
to a therapist if you're like, if I was like back at home, I can't talk to my Maryland. So you would have to like get 2 different therapists, right?
So some therapists are licensed in multiple states.
Mm.
So it makes it more complicated, but you can search, and then Like there's therapy for Black girls, there's Psychology Today that will allow you to see like where folks are licensed. So sometimes you might find a provider who is licensed in your home state, who's also licensed in Maryland. Now, there's this initiative that they've been working on where we may be able to get like one license and it covers multiple states. Unfortunately, it's been in the works for many years now. And every month they tell us like, oh yeah, it's coming. So it just started to roll out. So states have to opt in. So states opt in. So I think psychologists already have it. So if they've signed up for this one license, it covers multiple states, maybe like 20, 25 states. So you wouldn't have to worry about that as much. So for therapists and counselors, it just started. I think the first 2 states enacted it in October. They say it should roll out by the spring.
Wow.
So that might be something that is not as much of an issue soon. But we're waiting just like you guys are. If it does go into effect, that would be really nice though, because then that gives providers the flexibility. It would also give, more Black providers the ability to see folks in other states where they might not have representation. They might not have licensed therapists that look like them. So we could say like, oh yeah, I'm in DC, but I'm seeing folks in Montana or South Dakota or wherever they are. To be continued. But you can ask them, like you can ask them up front, you can let them know, hey, I'm a college student, I go to school in Maryland, my home state is this, are you licensed in both states? It might make it a little bit harder, but you can definitely ask. Thank you for asking. What else you got?
Thank you so much for like sharing everything with us, like not just like the therapy, but also about like your journey and like kind of like figuring like things out as you go along. And I guess like my question kind of relates back to something you mentioned about like your network and like maybe like having to like restructure it. So I think for like a lot of us since we're in college, we're kind of like at this like time in our lives where things are like constantly like changing. So I was like wondering, how do you if we're growing, like how do we get our community to grow with us?
Lean into your natural skills. So for some people, they love talking on the phone. Call people, show that you genuinely are interested in them outside of just what they can do for you. If it's emails, reach out on emails. If it's social media, maybe just keep like a warm contact with them. Hey, I saw this, I thought of you, or I know that you were interested in X, Y, and Z. This might be a resource that's helpful for you. Or just try like, hey, you want to go meet for coffee? I know the new semester, I haven't seen you in a while. It's not easy because that's just another thing that is now on your plate of like how to keep in contact with all these people. It gets a lot harder when you're like, oh, I need something from them. I haven't talked to them in 5 years. How do I start the conversation? But if you do the just little things along the way, thinking of you, I know you mentioned X, Y, and Z. How was your application to grad school going? Just showing genuine interest in people will help, but not all of us are comfortable with that. So, what are some things you're comfortable with? If it's a note, if it's trying to get together in person, if you're like, hey, I don't really do the online stuff, but maybe I can try to share an event and be like, hey, I'm going to this event. You might be interested in it. But yeah, networking is like genuinely actually caring about people and not just making sure you're utilizing them for their skills or their potential in the future, because people can see that. They see right through it. And yeah, continuing to grow. So if you're in a new place, if you're in a new workplace, introducing yourself, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. A lot of us are like, oh, I don't want to talk to people. I don't want to talk to people because it's uncomfortable. Sometimes we have to. Like you have to engage. It's not as scary as it might seem. Folks don't really bite often. Some do, I guess. yeah, working through rejection. Because sometimes they're gonna be like, yeah, no, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to connect with you.
Mhm.
But I think if you know it up front and you kind of go in with like, I'm just connecting with folks. I'm just trying to build my network. I'm just sharing a resource. If they don't respond, that's okay. It's nothing personal. And maybe exploring that in therapy. Um, any specific ways that like you've thought about networking or kind of keeping in touch with folks as your journey continues and you're losing contact?
Yeah, because like I was thinking, like, especially with like graduation coming up, like being away from everyone, because like in like more here, like everyone's like so close together, but then when we all graduate, like who knows like where we'll end up, and like people might be going to grad school immediately, some people might be going to like the workforce. So it's like figuring out like how you keep in touch with people in a way that's like meaningful and like impactful and like keeps like your friendships like not necessarily the same as they are like now, but keeps them like still strong.
Does anyone else have any thoughts on kind of cultivating those relationships and keeping in contact with folks?
Well, I'm only a sophomore, but I think really like calling on the phone, like it's looked down upon, but you can really stay connected. Especially like I know like my high school friends, like I'd be on the phone with them probably every other day, even though we're like in two different states or like they're in college somewhere else. We're still really close, even though like I probably haven't seen them since like last year or something. Like really like maintaining like you both sides have to be accountable.
Yeah.
Because it can't just be one sided. So on the phone, that's really helpful.
And I love that you mentioned like both sides, because
Yeah.
if they're not reciprocating, if they're not showing any interest in you and what you've got going on too, it's okay to just move on. Yeah, let it go.
And it sometimes doesn't feel good, to let those people go, but sometimes you have to do it. One of the things I wanted to say that I think that's important in trying to stay, I know what helps me is having students emails outside of JHU, because our bubbles, JHU, that email doesn't stick with you guys when you graduate. And so for some of my students that have moved on, who have wanted to stay in contact with me, they have given me their Gmail. So you were specifically talking about how to stay in contact with people when you graduate. A lot of my seniors have, for the ones that I'm really close with, they've given me their telephone numbers and they have my telephone numbers. And for the ones that we aren't that close, but we do want to stay in contact, they just give me their Gmail outside their Gmail. The other thing I want to say is just dropping a note and saying, hi, just checking on you, just wanted to let you know X, Y, and Z. I have so many students that ask me for recommendation letters. Only about 2% of those students give me feedback and let me know what the outcome of that recommendation is. One, I have students who ask me for recommendation letters who I've only taught as seniors. But if you've never come back, and this is me talking from a position as a professor, if I haven't seen you since your freshman year and now you are a senior and you're asking me for a letter of recommendation, I've taught so many students over the time, I just might not really remember who you are. And because I am asked to write so many letters of recommendations, it's so much easier for me to write a letter of recommendation for a person who I have been in contact with over the years. We've had multiple little coffees here, just an email here, just, I know what you're doing. I have something to talk about. I found that it just makes it easier for me. If I'm writing 15 letters of recommendations in one semester, if I haven't seen you since you were a freshman, I really don't even have the space in me to make up something to try to say. Like I have to say no. And it hurts me to tell people no. So when you stay in contact with me and give me, we're building a relationship, a genuine relationship, that's helpful. So find ways to build that genuine relationship, in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and even though it hurts you to say no, I think you're also doing not only yourself a service, but also the students, because otherwise you're just gonna get a generic letter.
Yeah.
And folks are gonna be like, oh, this letter of recommendation is coming from someone who doesn't know this candidate or this student at all.
Yeah.
So to me, it sounds like, you're honestly like doing them a favor.
Yeah,
By saying, no,
yeah.
I'm not just gonna give you a generic letter. And the same goes for relationships. Like, if someone, like we talked about, like if someone is in line with your values, they don't have, similar thoughts on growth or like ambition, or like sometimes it's okay to just say no. Like, I'm going X, Y, and Z places. I love you. It's not a judgment on your character, but we might not be able to move together in the same way
Mhm.
because your time is valuable. You only have so much time. If you're trying to cultivate like genuine connections with people, genuine relationships with people, a true network of folks, those should be folks that have similar values, have similar interests, are doing stuff, and also interested in you and who you are.
Yeah, willing to reciprocate that, I've sometimes had people say, well, make sure you call me. Make sure you call me. What?
I'm the
Just
worst
don't need
at
a
that.
call.
I talk to people all day. I don't call anyone, and I feel so bad.
A text message or something.
I know.
Like something. Yeah, something. It shouldn't just be all on you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
But yeah, find the thing that works for you.
Yeah.
If you are good at phone calls, do that.
Mhm.
If you're like, I don't actually like phone calls, but I'd love to send like a quick email every once in a while, do that.
Mhm.
Don't do the things you feel like you have to do. Do the things that you can actually do realistically and consistently.
I have a colleague from my PhD program. She sends yearly letters in the mail right around that Christmas time to give us an update of everything that's happened with her and her family. And it's like, I know it's coming and I'm looking forward to it. And it's so very nice. And that's her. I don't send a letter back. I send a text message, thank you, girl. It's so nice to hear. But,
That's
we get
her
a
thing.
nice 2-page letter. Yeah, it's a genuine in the mail with a little stamp letter. It's really nice. But that's her thing.
That's her thing.
Yeah, and it was nice to know that I was added to that list of receiving that letter, so yeah.
It's more than just like your close friends on Instagram or TikTok. Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, what else? What other questions you got? More, what time?
We have time,
Okay.
probably about 20 more minutes. Yeah. Right, Michelle?
Yep.
Okay. She's out. We've learned we needed a timekeeper for this course. Yeah.
I wanted to go back to Percy's question actually about like generational relationships and like intergenerational trauma. What you were saying earlier reminded me of my mom and how like she's always keeps herself busy, and she immigrated here from Uganda, so she's like very much like I have to work with my kids, and even like in the beginning of the year when we're having our choice of motherhood assignment, we had to like interview our mothers, and it was so hard for me to be like, okay, what do you find joy in? Like, who would you be if you didn't have kids and stuff? And she ended up telling me like, oh, it took a long time, but she ended up telling me how much she really enjoys like telling her story and wants like us as her kids to like spend more time with her, so we know more of her story like before she had us. And I got actually it was her birthday recently, and I got her journal, and she was like so happy that she could write her story and stuff. So I really appreciated what you're saying about like prioritizing those conversations like in intergenerational families. And right now I'm also doing research on like intergenerational trauma and like how that is translated within African families. So I was wondering how like you translate those conversations within the medical healthcare system, like from therapists to like up to doctors, and like how I know that you said there's a disconnect. But
Yeah, there is. So my go-to answer is finding a doctor who is culturally competent and is going to hear like the subcontext. But it is a challenge because doctors have to do X, Y, and Z. They have to, some things that doctors have to report or therapists have to report, which are normalized in certain communities. It's like, no, you just have to understand the language. Like that's not abuse, or maybe it is, and maybe that's a conversation to have with family, but
Mm.
it's tough. It's tough. And it's also hard too, because we don't necessarily want to utilize like the younger generations to always have to translate or, relay that information, because that's an unfair distribution of power. Where now the children, because they do speak English or they speak English more comfortably, they're sharing really intimate, private things about their parents that they shouldn't really even know with providers. They're trying to translate medical stuff back to parents. And with trauma, it's hard because they have to know like how it impacts them. And if they don't see anything wrong with it, I can't tell someone what's their trauma. It has to be something that they identified as being traumatic, because what's traumatic for you might not be what's traumatic for you. So what I've learned to do to survive, I don't necessarily see as trauma, but maybe I had a loss, and that was what was really impactful and traumatic. So as therapists, helping folks identify, build awareness, narrate their story, just get it down, with the hopes that they feel more confident speaking to their medical providers, or, sometimes it's giving them resources too. So maybe it's like, oh, here's a checklist of symptoms. Let's work through what each of these might mean. Because if we say like anxiety to someone of a different culture and they're like, oh no, I don't have anxiety. But then we talk about it and like, oh yeah, your stomach gets tight, you get a headache, and they're like, oh yeah, every time I go, to do X, Y, and Z, my stomach gets tight, but they don't know that's anxiety. So sometimes going through a checklist, giving them some language to say like, okay, maybe I'm feeling anxiety. And then when they go to the doctor, they can say, I'm having anxiety versus I'm having some stomach pains, and their doctor is writing it off as, whatever, or just giving them like Pepto-Bismol or whatever. But it's not an easy process. And it's hard because there's not a lot of folks that are culturally competent. It's not easy for doctors to have time because of managed care systems. Sometimes they're with folks for 10 minutes. Having community, having people, because sometimes it's not always the doctors, especially if we're talking about like birth and, maybe it's midwives, maybe there's doulas, there's other people in the medical field with the knowledge that can help them get what they need, even if the doctor doesn't identify or resonate with their experience. But yeah, in terms of like trauma, it's a process. Getting folks to write it down, having them talk to other people and be like, oh yeah, maybe that wasn't quite normal. Like maybe I don't have to stay busy all the time. Am I just staying busy because I want to stay busy because some people like to be busy? Or am I staying busy because I don't want to sit with these thoughts, or I have nightmares so often that I'm like up all night doing laundry because I'm avoiding sleep? Patience. Letting it unfold over time. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think that you're beginning to lean into a conversation that we wanted to make sure that we talked about. The students are now beginning to, because this is a semester, so we're having to think really quickly through what it means to reimagine healthcare structures. So they are working on a project right now. They're doing their first project, I've named it a taste of maternal health, where they're looking at 7 different areas. They're doing research on what are some of the things that are positively, that was a way of saying that, happening in Africa, in South America, in North America, in Europe. What are some things that we want to bring together that we see, oh yes, this is a part of our future. This is what we want to highlight. This is what we want to see in 2035 or whenever, right? And so they're bringing that together to present that, and then they're going to develop some questions where they survey each other about the things that they found, but also what do these, I think it's 14 or 15 of you all, no, it's 15 of you all, what do you want to see? What do you want to create? How might you answer this question? This is what I'm thinking based on what I found. how might you answer that? And then they're going to end the course by doing a podcast to kind of just synthesize this course of what we talked about. And I think a part of what you're starting to talk about is about the team and how important community is.
Yeah.
And I love that you just blasted right past and said, might not be that doctor.
Or that therapist, but it's such a challenge because sometimes we have to go where our insurance will provide us or to somebody that's in our local community, even if that's not the best provider for us, because we have access to limited resources.
But remember, we were in Ghana, right? We were in Tapo, and I'm thinking about when we all, I know for me, I was like, what? That says herbs? Pharmacists?
Yeah.
Herbs are sold here?
Yeah.
So what about
In the hospital.
in the house, those other options
Mhm.
that we don't always think is an option, right? Who might we turn to? So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you might help your patients, clients navigate care that they might not,
Know that they
even have access to or even need. Like I could have used a whole lot of people along this
my
journey.
gosh.
Like when you think about body work and like the ways I know that I carry tension, my shoulder and my hip, or when I had a miscarriage, I probably should have saw a therapist. Didn't know.
We
I
didn't
just
know.
cried a little hard away and just eventually tried to forget it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we don't know. A lot of times we don't know until we go through experiences. And like I said, like it was years after I had my oldest daughter where I was like, oh, that was postpartum anxiety.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, all right, that's what that feels like. So perinatal mood and anxiety disorders is a few different things. So postpartum depression, which a lot of people talk about, but then postpartum anxiety, also birth trauma. So that's probably like one of the biggest ones where people are like, oh, I didn't know that qualifies as trauma. But you're like, you almost died, your baby almost died. And even for partners.
Yeah.
Like partners can experience postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, birth trauma, seeing someone you love die on the table, flatline, and then come back. That's pretty traumatic. But if we don't have the language, or if we don't know that's trauma, then it's just like, oh yeah, well, that's just the way birth is. For nutrition, as I'm thinking about the care team, it's like so much of it is nutrition. Like our nutrition needs change as we're growing a baby, as we're nursing a baby. But if no one tells you that, how do you know? So it's lovely when we have those intergenerational conversations where folks are passing down knowledge and saying like, oh yeah, I use this herb to help with nausea, or I use this to, help go to sleep. Because if we just are going to go through like the American medical model, you're not going to find those things. You're not going to find those answers. And there's also a lot of shame. Like doctors love to shame mothers and shame people. If they don't understand it, then it's like taboo, it's bad. When these are things that have been around for thousands of years, one of my big takeaways from Ghana was this book that all the moms got to fill out about themselves, about their baby, and they take that book with them to every single appointment. We don't have things like that. So you might see one doctor, you might get this test result, this information, you go see a different doctor, you get a different test, different result. You don't know. So, and again, it's hard, but it's like having our community and kind of using the medical system for what we can use them for, but then also sharing the information within our own networks. So your person that's an herbalist, supporting their business, making sure that other people know what they do. Because sometimes we're like, oh yeah, my auntie does something with breastfeeding. And it's like, no, she's a licensed, lactation consultant. She knows what she's talking about. She's worked with thousands of clients, but I'm like, oh, we didn't know. So even in our own families, like getting better at sharing information, because I can think about, how many family members, and I'm like, oh, what do they do for work? Oh, I don't actually know. So I guess that goes back to our previous conversation about community communication, sharing like, oh, this is my interest. This is what I'm studying in school. One, take me seriously, because I know when you're young, folks don't really want to take you seriously, but like, no, I'm truly studying nutrition. These are the folks that I help. I would like to support people in our community. I want to share some resources with them, because what one nutritionist tells us to do during pregnancy is not necessarily what's best for us.
Mhm.
And sometimes we do need to say like, okay, well, I hear what you're saying, but this is what my mom does, this is what my grandma's done, this is what my auntie has done, and it's helped them.
Mhm.
And they haven't experienced this because they did incorporate these herbs or these medications or, this type of food. Like there's so many foods that have value and we don't know. And we're like so used to just, and I say us, like as Americans, so used to what people tell us we should eat and what vitamins we should take. But maybe our aunties and our grandmas actually know better.
Mhm.
And we need to ask them. We need to trust them. Sometimes what they say is not right.
Mhm.
So when they tell you, give the baby a chicken wing at
Yeah.
2 weeks old, like don't do that.
Okay.
Don't do that.
Eating purposes, okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. But do your research.
Yeah.
Build your community. Get folks in your community that do a lot of different things, that have passions, that are like, oh yeah, I do perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, or
Mhm.
I'm a lactation consultant, or I'm an herbalist, and support them.
I do also like what you said about partners and trauma as well. Because right before I had Kadir, I had this thing that was going on with my throat was closing up. And so I was in ICU for a couple of weeks and they weren't sure if I was going to live. And so it was like they started to prepare my husband to make a decision on whether or not they would save me or the baby. And at the time, we had the three older girls. And so my mom was able to come down. My dad wasn't because he was going through cancer, chemotherapy at the time. But like, I'm like, did we check back in with him to make sure he was okay?
Yeah.
After all that time, because he was seriously like, and the kids could not come see me because everybody had to wear PPE, because they didn't know what it was that was causing my throat to close up. But like checking in with the partners as well, I think is something else that's, a part of that team if we're talking about building care, for families, for mothers, families, partners. Yeah.
Yeah, checking in with each other. So hearing you say that, and then also thinking about Michelle's question,
Mhm.
and it's like our medical system is not necessarily going to give us what we need. But finding out what people are passionate about, even if it's not their full-time job, maybe they do, X, Y, and Z, and they're very good at it. And supporting them and checking in on their interest. And then, connecting folks like, oh yeah, I know you said you make teas for postpartum folks. Let me introduce you to my friend. Let me connect folks. So that I think could also help facilitate where you're like, I don't even know what to talk to about people or, how to check in with them, but truly get to know beyond their position, their jobs, like what are they interested in? What are they passionate about? How can you connect folks?
Yeah, because I refuse to hold space. Like I just don't know everything. I just had a friend who had a baby in Texas and she was asking all these lactation questions. And I was like, girl, one of my friends helped me back in the day. But one's in Texas, one's in Tennessee. I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm like here. And they exchanged information and she's getting all the support that she needs.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. We can't expect medical system, not because they don't want to. A lot of doctors are just overworked. There's not enough doctors. There's entire areas in our country that don't have like an OBGYN.
Yeah.
Maternal care deserts where folks cannot even see a doctor. We need our communities. We need folks that are learning, are passionate, and then are going to bring in their own history, experiences, culture. This is something that my mom did, or this is something that I heard works. Then we can do our own research and say like, okay, well, should I try it or should I not? But we can't expect the medical system to solve all of our problems.
Okay, so we've asked everyone this, so I'm wondering if you had to say, this is my ways I found joy in my own life within or outside of motherhood, what would you say? The ways you found joy, been able to cultivate joy within your own life?
So I have one answer off the bat and then I'll think a little bit. The first one is having compassion for myself. and allowing myself to make mistakes and be okay with that. I've found a lot of joy and power in just looking at the things that like, maybe I didn't plan, maybe that wasn't what I wanted to do. And maybe that took me in a direction that I needed to go. So showing myself, you know, some love, some compassion and saying like, oh, it's okay. You didn't know any better. You know, you're just a baby. Didn't necessarily have the support that you needed. Didn't know what to look for in yourself. Never mind what to seek out in a partner or a career. Making that okay. I think that definitely released a lot of like guilt, shame, allowed me to find joy. Being curious is probably the second thing. So not holding myself to anything, just kind of like in my own way, being fearless. And maybe I don't know, but I'm gonna try it. If I don't like it, I don't like it. But I've found so much joy in like the things that I didn't think I would like. I was like, oh, I actually do like that. Or people that I didn't think I'd connect with. And I actually like them. And I've had great conversations with them. So that's my second one. So the curiosity and fearlessness. First one is compassion. Let's see, third one, cultivating joy, I would say is community. So having friends, having, you know, my kids are my community too. So they bring me a lot of joy and a lot of laughs and, you know, a lot of stress, but it allows me to be more childlike in some ways. My college student keeps me young. I'm like, obviously I have to still be fly because she can't think she's better than me.
I love it. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much.